Hey guys, Hasan here, Vancouver real estate agent. Big day coming up later on this month, September 20th. We have the federal election. I thought it'd be pretty helpful to go over the platforms, the housing platforms of the NDP, the Liberals, and the Conservative governments. Obviously, housing and housing affordability is the hot button topic this year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the three different platforms, and then at the very end, I'm going to talk about a few items that we should be cognizant of as we head to the polls. And as always, would love to hear your comments in the comment box below, how you're feeling about housing affordability, not necessarily which way you're going to vote, but if there are anything in the housing plans that you particularly like or you particularly dislike. So we'll start with the Liberal government. They're the incumbent and they're the ones that called the election. 1.4 million housing units is what they intend to bring to the market over the next 4 years nationally. They also want to double the first-time home buyer tax credit. Currently at $750, they want to bring that to $1,500. An interesting part of their platform is they want to invest $1 billion in rent-to-own product to the market, and it's not something that is very common in Vancouver or nationally for that matter. So it'll be interesting to see how and if that would play out. The Liberals also want to essentially give you an additional tax-free savings account, a home buyer's tax-free saving account. My understanding is if you're under the age of 40, you can use this account towards a home buying purchase and not have to pay taxes on it. The amount that you can have in this account is up to $40,000. Another aspect of the Liberals' plan is they want to get rid of blind bidding. So blind bidding, as you likely already know or may not know, it's basically when you're going into a multiple offer scenario, you're intending to purchase a home and you have no idea what the other offers look like in terms of price. This can cause severe escalations in house prices and ultimately housing affordability. So that's a very unique aspect of the Liberal plan. It's not in the Conservative or the NDP plan. You'll notice as we go over the various plans, there are some elements that are I guess you could say shared or taken between the various parties, but that is specific to the Liberals as well. They want to make home inspections, getting home inspections done before you purchase a right, rather than something you can write into an offer and potentially have to remove if you're in a competitive situation. Now, the other thing that the federal government wants to do, the existing federal government, the Liberals, is they want to ban foreign ownership for the next 2 years. It's going to be interesting to see exactly how this plays out. The Liberals have not typically been in favor of foreign ownership bans. We'll talk about it a little bit later when I get near the end of the video. And also they want to crack down on flipping homes. Now, this is another aspect of the Liberal plan that is quite different than the NDP and the Conservatives, is if you have a principal residence, currently in Canada, you don't pay a capital gains tax, provided it's your principal residence. This is, as long as I can remember, this has always been the case. What the Liberals want to do is if you hold on to a principal residence for less than a year, you will pay capital gains on the property or on the lift, on the profit that you make. So let's talk about the Conservative plans led by Aaron O'Toole. Now, they also want to do the 2-year foreign buyer ban for anyone that doesn't intend, and I put this in quote, intend to move to Vancouver. So we don't know exactly how that looks, what is going to denote an intention to move to Vancouver. A lot of the stuff we talk about, just to keep in mind, it will come down to the implementation, but they, like the Liberals, are also proposing a 2-year foreign buyer ban. Now, quickly on the foreign buyer front, when the Conservatives say that there will be a ban for 2 years, they don't want to discourage foreign investment, and essentially what they want to do is they want to encourage the foreign investment in the form of rental housing supply. Part of what they're going to do is they're going to incent developers to build more rental housing, which, you know, we have a lack of all types of housing here, so it doesn't hurt, of course, to have additional rental housing as well as market housing. The Conservatives would also like to increase new housing supply by 1 million units over the next 3 years. An interesting and unique part of the Conservative plan is they want to basically any municipalities that are taking federal funding, they want to force them into a position to build high density around transit hubs. Another component of the Conservative plan is they want to bring back 7 and 10-year mortgages. You can find them around, but they want to put forth an opportunity where they can get rid of the stress test. The stress test, especially lately, when you can get rates in the ones, 1.5%, 1.7%, the stress test has I feel like it's been a hurdle for a lot of buyers that are in a position to be able to pay their mortgage and their other living expenses. I personally have clients that have been held back because of the stress test. So the Conservatives are essentially looking at a way to remove the stress test, and they believe that with longer term mortgages, that will give more cost certainty and more risk certainty to the lenders, so we wouldn't need a stress test moving forward. So we're going to talk about the NDP platform. They want to add 500,000 affordable housing units over the next 10 years and half of those over the next 5 years. Now, Jagmeet Singh, leader of the party, he came out the other day and he said he wants to crack down on wealthy speculators that are purchasing properties, renovating them, and flipping them in a short period of time. And what he wants to do in those scenarios is he wants to increase the capital gains tax from 50% to 75%. I'll definitely address this at the end of the video because I think there's something we really need to think about when it comes to capital gains and wealthy speculators versus renovators and flippers. The NDP, they want to preserve 1.7 million homes over the next 4 years, and they want to introduce a national foreign buyers tax of 20%. Here in Vancouver, we do it locally as is. We had started with a 15% foreign buyers tax. It had shifted to 20%. The NDP would like to roll that out nationally to target foreign buying and foreign ownership. So those are the highlights of the 3 housing strategies for NDP, Conservative, and Liberals. And there's a few things that I want to talk about. The first thing is differentiating between a wealthy speculator and a renovator or a flipper. Now, the NDP, as I just mentioned, they want to target wealthy speculators, but in doing so, with their policy, are they targeting the right party? So in my experience, wealthy speculators are not renovators or flippers, and actually renovators and flippers are different as well. We'll talk about that in another video, but we have to distinguish between who's a wealthy speculator and who's a renovator and a flipper. What I've seen is that wealthy speculators, they purchase land or properties, they hold on to it for a longer period of time, they don't do any renovations to it. A speculator is someone that purchases something, doesn't add value to it, and waits for the right time for value to go up and sell it. Oftentimes, wealthy speculators are purchasing these properties. They're not having them tenanted. They are not doing anything with the property. Sometimes they redevelop, but a lot of times they don't. So they're not actually, what they're doing is they're restricting housing supply, right? They're taking units off of the market. Now, renovators, on the other hand, they're purchasing properties that you or I don't want to purchase, or we don't have the means to purchase. So a lot of these properties are almost unlivable. We're not talking about homes that require a fresh coat of paint and a little bit of flooring. A lot of these homes are, gutted in certain areas. So what the renovator or flipper is doing is they're purchasing these properties. And keep in mind, home buyers, the average home buyer is not going to have the funds to be able to get a mortgage, but then also do the construction, do the repairs on the property before moving into it. So what the renovators and flippers are doing is they're picking up this product. Again, some of it is unlivable. They're building it back up. They may be even adding a basement suite or adding a bedroom to it and placing it back on the market, yes, oftentimes within a year. But they are at least maintaining housing supply, or in a lot of instances, they're actually creating additional units by adding things like mortgage helpers. So I don't personally feel like we should be penalizing any group or entity that's adding housing units to our inventory, because that's the number one concern and the number one issue in Vancouver real estate is the supply. To think that renovators and flippers are making massive amounts of money, it's incorrect. I looked at a project for a client about a month ago. It required significant work. It was a single family home, a detached home. We were going to add a basement suite below to it. And yeah, we were going to place it back on the market about 6 months later after doing the work. We lost out on the offers, and I'll tell you, it wasn't a family that was coming in to purchase this home. That was not the competition. It was other renovators and flippers. But what would have ultimately happened is we would have added a housing unit. We would have now had dwellings for 2 families versus 1 family. And the profit margin when we did our pro forma, about 15% profit margin. Now, we are in the midst of a bull market. Our economy is thriving in a lot of different ways. When you look at the stock market and you look at real estate, of course, there are a lot of different ways you can make 15% or close to with much less risk than taking on a project. So again, as you head to the polls or when you're looking at these plans, do distinguish between a wealthy speculator, again, likely to hoard land, hoard properties, not put families into them, and wait a longer period of time to sell, and people that are taking distressed properties, fixing them back up and making them into a property that you or I would love to move into. Now, all three housing plans, they do address supply, but the problem is the federal government has actually very little control over the supply at the city level or the province level. The supply is really controlled by municipal governments, provincial governments to a smaller extent, but it really comes down to the municipalities. That's why it's interesting how the Conservative plan does have a provision to force municipalities to build around transit, as mentioned earlier. So they at least are starting to address the breakdown that occurs at the municipal level. So when we hear about these housing supply initiatives by all three governments, we have to keep in mind they don't hold a lot of control in that sense. So a lot of it will come down to implementation. And housing supply, it doesn't get solved overnight. It's the number one issue. It's definitely the most impactful when it comes to housing prices. It's definitely the toughest to tackle as well. So the housing supply issue, whichever party wins the election, let's just hope that they're able to actually push some of these policies and some of these plans down to the municipal level. On that note, just recently, a government group did do a study on municipalities in the Vancouver area and what is hindering development. And it came to the conclusion that a lot of development projects are getting stuck at the municipal level. We have groups like NIMBYs, public interest groups, who shoot down proposals to go from single family to multifamily or low-rise density to high-rise density. My personal opinion is in addition to these plans, we need change at the municipal level. The problem is everyone is pandering for a vote, whether it's city council, whether it's provincial government, whether it's federal government. And keep this in mind as well, with over 60% of Canadian voters, homeowners, none of the three parties are going to ruffle the feathers of the homeowner. It's one of those things where a lot of the policies that we're talking about and a lot of the stuff in the plan is going to drive demand. It's going to make it easier for buyers to purchase. At the same time, the parties are trying to appease sellers as well. So if the supply issue is not addressed and we continue to have low interest rate, higher first-time home buyer tax credits, tax-free savings account to be able to purchase your home, longer-term mortgages, all of these things that can actually fuel buyer demand. If the supply doesn't keep up, again, it's charged at the municipal level, we're going to run the risk of having even higher real estate prices heading into the new year. And the last thing I want to say, guys, is just head to the polls, whatever you do. Get yourself informed, watch videos like this, learn about the other platforms that are important to you. We are privileged to have the ability to vote, so let's take that opportunity. And again, if you guys have any questions on the housing platforms, place them in the comment box below. So guys, if you enjoyed this video or learned something, hit the like button, share it with your friends, consider subscribing to the channel. I create these real estate videos on a weekly basis. And if you have any questions, again, place them in the comment box below. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you get out there and vote. Have a wonderful day.